coming back into the sport and putting myself in a position to push myself again, I had to not only make it a personal journey, but also think about it from a big picture perspective. Like, what does me climbing this random rock in the middle of nowhere like do for the world? So besides, like, because it's gonna be so easy to diminish that to be like, it's just a rock. You're not making a difference. Who cares, you know?
This is Climbing Gold.
You've talked about, obviously pushing sport, right? Like we're talking about the sport's always evolving upward, but you've talked about evolving the sport horizontally. Can you explain to me like what that means and how you're doing it? Yeah.
Well, I feel like one of the big reasons why I never thought something like Death of Villains would be possible is because I just could never visualize myself at that level of the sport because I didn't see anybody there, like pushing limits of the sport who came from a background I could identify with who looked like me. And so I kind of understood the idea of like having representation to like open the gates of the sport to other people as being really important as a kid. And so to be able to be at this level again, to be pushing a sport and to have people see me at that level who grew up like me, who like are able to see some form of representation of themselves. Like I feel like that means a lot to me because it's more than just a personal goal of sending a hard route. It's a community goal towards like expanding the sport to people who never thought the outdoors was for them or that climbing was a journey that they should even embark on for whatever reason. It's like, no, like this community is open for you as well, as long as you are, able to like dream that big and be willing to put yourself out there in that way. And from a horizontal perspective, like for my nonprofit organization, like we've been like doing so much work developing new grants, looking at new programs and partnerships we could be making. Like I've always been very focused on like the whole way of me coming up into this sport. There were so many lucky happenstances that happened to help me get here, whether it was like, I couldn't go to this comp, and then, a day after having that conversation, I get a call from my first sponsor saying like, "Hey, we want to help you be able to afford to go places," or the random gym owner who overheard a conversation that we couldn't afford to go to a competition and donating some flight miles so we could get there, or just like random things where it's like we should not have been able to get this far, but it just so happened that fate was on my side. It's like I don't want people's inclusion in the sport to be fate. I want it to be circumstance and drive and determination. And so I feel like building an infrastructure to kind of break down those barriers of access has just been a huge focus of mine. And Climate for Change is doing everything we can to make that a reality. So I feel like not only is that a goal in my professional life with like my nonprofit organization, but I feel like it's a goal in my climbing as well, too, like working hand in hand in a sense.
Does it make your climbing feel more satisfying? Like all your recent successes and just in general your achievements as a climber, do they mean more to you when you think that you're doing it for a broader community or to, as a symbol almost?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the questions I had to ask when I was an adult, even going into college, was like, why do I climb? Because I had been doing it for so long that I couldn't even remember a time in my life where I wasn't climbing. And when it's hard to pinpoint even your origin, it could be difficult to answer those why questions, aside from because I've always done it, because it's my comfort zone, because people tell me I'm good at it, you know? And so I feel like a hard thing sometimes for kids when you get an adult is like, answering why. And I feel like for me, coming back into the sport and putting myself in a position to push myself again, I had to not only make it a personal journey, but also think about it from a big picture perspective. Like, what does me climbing this random rock in the middle of nowhere like do for the world? So besides, like, because it's gonna be so easy to diminish that to be like, it's just a rock. You're not making a difference. Who cares, you know? But to think that, I'm creating a bigger community impact by accomplishing these things and setting an example for other people, like, it definitely makes the accomplishments feel richer and more satisfying.